Hey, sophomores, let's get our do now slip. And here is your question. Which trade route would you have rather traveled on? The Silk Road or the Indian Ocean? Pick your trade route and then give 2 to 3 details. We're going to have our teacher push pause right now while you write that for about a minute to 2 minutes. Go ahead. All right, now why don't you compare and share your answer with the person next to you? Go ahead, take about 30, 45 seconds to do that, maybe a minute. Push pause. All right, excellent. Let's take our slips, pass them to the left, and then pass them forward. Go ahead and do that now. And today we are working on our chapter. We are on, again, 2.3, 3.1, Trade Networks of the Classical and Post-Classical Era. And our essential question is, how did the Silk, Indian Ocean, and Trans-Saharan trade networks change from the classical to post-classical era? Our objective, students will be able to identify how the Indian Ocean trade and Trans-Saharan trade networks changed from the classical to post-classical era. Our agenda is huge today. So here's the big thing right now. Over winter break, your entire packet needs to be done. Everything, all the optics, everything. So take a look at it. Your note-taking packet, everything has to be done, all the readings. So we will get started with a lecture, and that lecture is going to be from Mr. Wood. All right, so this is our lecture. I'll tell you where to write your notes right now. On your 2.3, 3.1 packet, you may go all the way past that optic there to it says Part 3, Trans-Saharan Trade. And skip down here where it says take notes on Mr. Wood's lecture on Trans-Saharan Trade here. So go there in your packet, and I will get our lecture ready to start. Oh, I got to get myself out of the way here. Let's see if that works. All right, well, let's start with the Empire of Ghana. All right, now Empire of Ghana, and why don't you also write down here for Empire of Ghana, write that down and put that this was in the classical era, that this was in the classical era. All right, so let's start. So around the 5th century, that would be the 5th century, we had in the classical era, there were Berber traders who were from North Africa, and Berber traders were starting to travel to West Africa. Now, why were they going to West Africa? They started going there because they wanted the gold that was located in West Africa. They wanted to trade for gold. And what happened was they were able to finally domesticate, that means tame, camels, and they were able to start riding camels across the desert into West Africa, and this started a large trade network, the beginnings of a large trade network. And it's just barely beginning in the classical era. So Berber traders over here, nomadic traders who were living here, are able to go to West Africa, and they start a trade for gold. They realize the gold's very valuable, so they're willing to cross a big, huge-ass desert for it. They're crossing the Sahara Desert for that. All right, to the post-classical era. See, now it says post-classical. All right, so in the post-classical era, from the 8th century onward, and by the way, 8th century is the 700s. From the 8th century on, gold was very much sought after. And it was sought after, again, from West Africa. It was the main commodity wanted for trade. The reason for this is because gold currency or gold coins became sought after for trade. And they were taken from West Africa and they were traded for salt. Now, before you think that this would be a big ripoff for these people down here, why would you trade gold for salt? Salt was incredibly valuable back then because salt was a preservative. It could keep food fresh. And for the people in West Africa, they didn't have salt. So there wasn't refrigeration back then. You had to keep meats fresh. So salt was incredibly valuable. At one time, salt was worth as much as gold. Think about that next time you say salt. Thinking of you, Andres. All right, anyway, let's keep going here. So there was a salt for gold trade that was going on. And what happened was the gold was taken and made into gold coins, which was then used on other trade routes like the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean trade route. And we basically have a large Afro-Eurasian trade network from Africa to Europe to Asia, an Afro-Eurasian trade network. So from the 7th to the 11th century, trans-Saharan trade linked Mediterranean economies that demanded gold and also went all the way on the Silk Road. And the empire that was first running this trade was the Ghana Empire. The Ghana Empire was running this trade. Unfortunately, Ghana falls. We don't really know why. Drought could be a reason. It could have been a civil war fighting within here, and it could have been an outside invasion. But anyway, Ghana ends up falling. And as Ghana falls, a new kingdom rises, and that is the kingdom of Mali. So in the post-classical era, we see Ghana kind of rises in the beginning of the classical era, becomes at its peak in the beginning of the post-classical, then they fall, and then the kingdom of Mali ends up rising. So Mali really starts peaking by the 12th century or the 1100s. And there is a major city called Timbuktu, which becomes very powerful. Before we get there, though, let me bring up the Emperor Sundiata. Sundiata, you can see his name here. Emperor Sundiata unites the clans of Mali, and he makes Mali into an Islamic state. Ghana was becoming Muslim too at this time, but Sundiata really establishes Mali as a very strong Muslim state. Now it becomes Muslim, but it also becomes kind of a mix of cultural diffusion. They take some traditional African elements and they mix it with their Islam. So Timbuktu becomes a major focal city for trade in the Mali Empire. There are 3 universities in Mali. It also becomes an education center. So Timbuktu is a major education center. There's a big book writing, and they're producing books at this time as well. So Timbuktu becomes a major trade center, and trade for gold increases even more into Africa. And we see an increase in the trans-Saharan trade as Mali is becoming a rich, powerful kingdom, producing books almost more than anywhere else in the world. These books are written in Arabic because the Arabic language comes of Islam in the West Africa, as we see a kind of a mixed religion that's Islam and African traditional religions. We'll get to more about Islam in our next chapter. We'll explain exactly what Islam is as a religion. So, last thing, Sundiata, again, who I mentioned, Sundiata unites the people around and forms one big, large empire. There's kind of a period of warring states going on there. Sundiata is able to bring them together, and we have the powerful kingdom of Mali in the post-classical era. All right, so now we're going to talk about Mansa Musa. And Mansa Musa was the leader at the peak of power for the Mali government. I'll talk a little bit about Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa helps keeping a strong central government in Mali. He makes these wonderful building projects, builds lots of mosque, M-O-S-Q-U-E, which are basically Muslim churches. He brings Arab scholars to Timbuktu and realizes that his own African scholars are basically just as good as the Arab scholars who come in, and they come in teaching Arabic. What he's really famous for is a pilgrimage that he makes to Mecca. He travels all the way to Mecca. This is something that you're supposed to do if you're a Muslim. You're supposed to go once in your life to the city of Mecca. And he goes there and he starts giving away a ton of gold. And he does this because the religion, Islam, Muslims are the people, Islam, I-S-L-A-M, L-A-M is the religion, says that you are supposed to give away your money. So on the way back, he brings all this gold and all these people with him to the city of Mecca. But on the way back, he starts giving away gold, and he gives up so much gold, there ends up being inflation. That gold isn't worth as much as it was before because more people have it. And it's really a show as he's giving away all this gold on his way back from Mecca of how powerful Mali was and what a strong West African empire it was. Here we see a map of Mansa Musa, who's from Timbuktu, as he was able to travel all the way across the Sahara Desert with all his people carrying gold with them, made it to Mecca, did his prayers here, was told that he needs to give money away, so gave money all the way back. People actually ended up following his caravan, his travels, in the hopes of getting some gold. So this is a show in the post-classical era of how strong Mali was and how the Trans-Saharan Trade Network was part of a larger Afro-Eurasian trade network, including the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean trade routes. All right, that was our lecture. There was a lot of info there. Why don't you compare and case what you got from that lecture with the person next to you? Our teacher can go ahead and hit pause for now. All right, now why don't you take your topic organizer out, and let's have everybody move one spot to the right. You may move quickly, take all your stuff with you. Move one spot to your right. When you get to your spots, you may take out your topic organizer and go to the part that says Trans-Saharan Trade Network and fill out what you can here on your Trans-Saharan Trade Network. And you may go ahead and do that now. Okay, now that you're done comparing and sharing, why don't you take about 7 to 10 minutes to read our part in the Trans-Saharan Trade Network, and you may take notes in your packet where we have the Trans-Saharan Trade Network, which is just above where I had my lecture. Those are the 2 boxes there where you may take notes. You probably won't need all that room. Why don't you take 7 to 8 minutes to go ahead and get that done? You may. If we're running out of time, this will be the ticket out. If there's more time, we'll be able to get more done. But why don't you right now take out your topic organizer again. And now take what you got from the readings in your topic organizer, and you may compare and share with your partner on the notes that you got from the reading. Go ahead and you may begin that now. All right, our ticket out will be basically this. Your homework over break is to have all this done. So finish your 2 optics if you can. If not, make sure you get them done by break. Keep these packets with you. Do not lose them. You will need them after break. We are going to have an essay on this. Do not lose these packets. Finish them. Make sure this is done. Your packet, make sure your topic organizer is done. Work on optic until the hour is done. And you guys have an absolutely wonderful break. And I will be seeing you later.